Magandang araw po muli sa inyo lahat. Once again, I'd like to welcome you to our Sunday online streaming. Binabati ko po kayo lahat ng mga sumusubaybay sa atin dito dito sa GenSan at sa ibang lugar po ng Mindanao, Visayas at Luzon. I also would like to welcome you and greet you, those who are watching us from the United States, from Europe, from the Middle East, even up to Australia and other parts of Asia. Also would like to request you, if you're watching us, please indicate what place you're watching, from where, saan po kayo mula nanonood. And also, I'd like to request you to follow and like our Facebook page. And by the way, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Bread of Life GenSan, so you'll be able to watch our previous streamings a couple of weeks ago, ilang Sundays na po. So we uploaded our streaming po, and also you will be able to watch our other videos that we will be uploading. Thank you. If you are a tennis enthusiast, you would probably have heard of the name Andy Murray. He's a great player. He's formerly a champion as well. In 2019, he had an injury. Nagkaroon po siyang injury. And I'd like to show you a video clip of his inspirational 2019 comeback story. Let's watch.
For a two-time champion, and he's recording the moment for himself as well.
9 months after surgery that could well have ended his professional career, Andy Murray is a winner once again.
Galing, ano? So, coming from an injury, unti-unti, nakabawi, nag-champion siya together with a partner sa doubles, and then later on, nag-champion na rin siya sa singles. So, it's an inspirational story of Andy that where, in spite of the injury, he was able to come back from that injury and play, and not only play, but becoming a champion again. Janet Makonovich, a professional gardener, designer, and author, said, happiness comes from growing what thrives, not merely survives. So she's probably saying that in a context dahil magaling siya sa gardening po. So hindi lang purong makasurvive yung kanyang mga halaman, ang kagalakan ay mag-thrive po yung kanyang mga halaman. Now, some people think being a supposed Christian means living a very boring life. Parang ang akala ng iba kasi, pagka-Christian ka, the Christian life is supposed to be boring. Para kang pinagmamasdan mo sa wall na pininturahan na hinahantay mong mag-dry up. Of course, I've seen some pretty boring Christians, and probably it's because they haven't experienced the Christian life the way God intended it to be. God never intended for our spiritual life to be simply like a hobby, or parang hobby lang na fishing, nagbo-bowling ka, nag-hunting ka, and na parang ang Christian life is simply some weekend event na hindi pa ginagawa yun. Fishing, bowling, pagkatapos ng ilang days ng trabaho, sa weekends, na mag-relax lang sila. Oh, the Christian life is not just simply like that, or hindi ganun talaga. Look at this statement. The Christian life as designed, as designed by God, is to be an exciting and lifelong adventure. Living for God can be the best life experience that any person can have. Yung totoong pagiging mananampalataya, totoong relasyon kay Jesus. Now, once we decide to live our life for God and to give ourselves completely to God, we will experience more excitement than we could ever imagine, no matter how hard life hits us. Kakaiba po yung experience na mararanasan natin with God. Kasi siguro akala na iba pagka Christian ka, parang long face, di ba? Parang laging malungkot, laging seryoso sa buhay. Nadaanan natin last Sunday nga, the Christian life is supposed to be an adventure. There's difficulties, there's tragedies, but you can laugh, you can enjoy life to the fullest. Epicurus says, an ancient Greek philosopher says, you don't develop courage by being happy in your relationships every day. You develop courage by surviving difficult times and challenging adversities. Ang totoong tapang ay hindi yung hindi ka natatakot. Ang totoong tapang ay hinaharap mo ang buhay, nagsusurvive ka, and of course, as we're looking at it, thriving, from the challenging adversities. Kagaya ni Andy Murray. Yung challenging situation niya, hindi lang siya nag-survive, gumaling lang siya, kundi nakabangon siya, nakabalik siya, naging champion pa rin siya. Kaya nga, kung babalikan natin, we started itong study na to, na thriving in the days ahead. I just like to balance, baka sabihin naman natin, pangit yung word na survive. Now, when I say thrive, not just simply survive, I'm not saying that surviving is not important. Actually, before we can really thrive, we have to survive. Nakasurvive ka, kaya lang yung go beyond the survival mode and thrive. Become better. A study of 300 highly successful people like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Helen Keller, Winston Churchill, Albert Einstein, or Albert Schweitzer, Mahatma Gandhi, revealed that 1/4 had handicaps such as blindness, deafness, or crippled limbs. Sila yung mga umasenso sa buhay niyo, may mga kapansanan. 3/4 had either been born in poverty, came from broken homes, or at least came from exceedingly tense, disturbed situations. Umangat sila sa kanilang mga pamumuhay, hindi lang sila survive okay, buhay lang sila. They thrived in the midst of their situations. Many years ago, somebody said, 80% of those who came from poverty succeeded in life. Out of the 100,000, 80% came from who were successful in life came from poor, humble families. That's why look at this statement. People do not succeed in life because they are fortunate enough to be given a life totally absent of problems. Hindi sila masenso dahil wala sila naging problema. In fact, it is because of the personal problems they faced that people became strong survivors. And later on, nag-thrive sa buhay. Most New Testament epistles were written from prison by Paul. John Bunyan wrote his great classic Pilgrim's Progress again in jail. Florence Nightingale, too ill to move from her bed, reorganized the hospitals of England. Kaya siya ang nire-recognize na parang if there's para bang hero ng nursing, it's Florence Nightingale, and which recently, di ba, sinelebrate nila yung nursing World Nursing Day or sort, ano? No? Semi-paralyzed and under constant menace of apoplexy, Pasteur, no, was tireless in his attack on disease. During the greater part of his life, American historian Francis Parkman suffered so acutely that he could not work for more than 5 minutes at a time. His eyesight was so wretched that he could scrawl only a few gigantic words on a manuscript, but he contrived to write 20 magnificent volumes of history. No? Grabe! The people who are successful in life, hindi yung wala sila naging problema. Actually, we can even say it is actually their problems that made them successful. No? Parang sinasabi nga, kung kayo nanonood nung The Last Dance ni Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, ano, nasasabi ni Michael Jordan or may ibang statements ni Michael Jordan sa ibang kaya siya nakapanalo sa mga last few shots niya kasi ang dami niyang na-miss, no? He missed so much, and marami siyang mga failures. That's why he is so successful, no? Kaya hindi nag-fail ang tao kaya siya successful, no? Kundi dahil dun sa mga failures na yon, dahil dun sa mga difficulties na yon, dahil dun sa mga trials na yon, no, nakapaangat siya sa kanyang buhay. That's why we're continuing our study on thriving in the days ahead. No, we're not saying ito sa pandemic na to na nangyari sa atin sa kasalukuyan, hindi lang ang aking desire, okay, just cope lang tayo. Hindi, in the days ahead, no, hindi lang tayo nakasurvive nito, kundi magta-thrive tayo, makakaangat tayo sa buhay. Kung ito yung magkakaroon ng sinatawag na new normal na ng buhay, panibagong situation na ang lakbayin ng tao, so magiging kakaiba na, pero we can thrive after the pandemic. And we will look at a person in the Old Testament or in the Hebrew Scriptures, as some people would say, a man named Joseph. Joseph was a man who knew how to survive despite the tremendous obstacles he faced. He was, of course, yung una kasi he was the favorite of his father Jacob. And dahil naging paborito siya ni Jacob, his brothers, kumbaga, hated him so much. Binenta siya into slavery, and then, nung pagkabenta sa kanya, naging magaling siya, na slave siya, no? Then, na-frame up siya, kumbaga, he was imprisoned in spite of his being innocent, and then forgotten for years by those na tinulungan niya doon sa bilangguan, a few years na after nakalaya yung natulungan niya, nakakalimutan siya, yet he survived. And actually, he thrived in life. No, as you will, if you are gonna read that in the Old Testament, and hindi lang siya nakasurvive, God used him to teach a nation, Israel, how to survive in the midst of crisis. No, and another statement like us to look at is this: every one of us is going to go through times of crisis when trouble and even sorrow threaten the stability of life as we know it. Isn't it that happened in the corona virus na to? No, yung stability ng maraming tao biglang nayanig. Nayanig tayo dahil sa pandemic na ito. O kung hindi man sa mga pandemic na ito ay in the past in our lives, nayanig na rin tayo. Na-threaten yung stability natin. But I believe that God has a plan to help us get through this, maaring sabihin natin, turning points in our life when everything around us seems to be crumbling. Nagigiba, nasishake, nayayanig tayo. So, we will look at some portions in the life of Joseph. Hindi natin mababasa lahat. I'd like you to read, actually from Genesis 31, 39 rather, almost up to Genesis 15. No? Mababasa natin ang buong buhay ni Joseph. Napakaganda pong basahin yan. And na-deliver siya from complete devastation to become a man of wisdom, a godly man who is able to rise above. Actually, nag-tribe siya. He was a second in command. After niya maging na siya ay binenta, naging alipin, naging bilanggo, out of the goodness of God, na talagang the sovereignty of God, yung hawak ng Panginoon sa kanyang buhay, naging second in command siya sa Egypt. So, somebody may share this poster. Not all storms come to disrupt your life. Some come to clear your path. Noon galing, Yung mga bagyo, hindi naman yan para i-disrupt lang ang buhay mo kundi para mabigyan ka ng path, ng daanan dun sa kung saan ka dapat ilalagay ng Panginoon. Adversity actually builds strength and character. Somebody posted this over the Facebook. Saan sinulat niya, although many are preoccupied with surviving the pending pandemic of the COVID-19, I see this as an opportunity for thriving. By no means do I take this virus, its casualties, and its consequences lightly. Hindi niya tinake lightly ang virus. Talagang delikado ito. However, the worst of times has the potential to bring out the best or worst in people. I am hoping for the former. Now, distinguishing thriving from surviving is having an orientation beyond yourself. A surviving orientation is about me and mine. Hindi naman masama na ako makasurvive ako sa buhay ko. Hindi naman talaga masama ang mag-survive. But let's go beyond simply surviving and after na coping lang tayo, nakabalik lang tayo sa dati nating kalalagyan. A thriving orientation is about us and the things that we have, but of other people as well. Now, practices that focus on the self and surviving are not simply about thriving. Hindi thriving yun. Thriving involves bettering the lives of others, not just our own. Kaya hindi lang nakasurvive tayo, napabuti natin ang kalagayan ng buhay natin, kundi somehow nakatulong tayo sa pagbubuti ng kabuhayan, kalalagayan ng mga tao. Yun po yung concept ng thriving na gusto natin pong ma-attain dito sa ating kalalagayan. Ito pong unprecedented threat nga, sabi nitong writer na to, COVID-19, but it is also an opportunity to thrive. I hope we can really have time to pause, to become deeply aware and attuned, to align our lives to what matters most, and to activate our will, to bring our agility and strength that is needed, not just to survive but also to help others thrive. Yun sana ang ating mapangawakan. William Jennings Bryan, a former politician and also former United States Secretary of State, sinulat niya, difficulty is the nurse of greatness. Difficulty ang nag-aalaga sa greatness. Kumbaga, in-nurse. But of course, a harsh nurse who roughly rocks her foster children into strength and athletic proportion. Yun po ang nagagawa ng difficulties. And so, today, I'd like us to look into the call to action in how we can survive and thrive in the midst of crisis like Joseph. So, unang-unang tingnan po natin, ang nakita in the midst of crisis, God's purpose is clear to the spiritually minded. Kaya, we need to discover God's purpose. In Genesis 41:38, in the easy English Standard Version, and Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find a man like this in whom is the Spirit of God?" Kasi ito po, na nagkaroon ng dream ang Pharaoh, wala maka-interpret. Yung mga learned, yung mga supposed wise men niya, hindi ma-interpret yung kanyang dream. Until naalala ng isang dating bilanggo na nakasama ni Joseph, no, yun yung providence ng Lord. Hindi kagad nakalimutan nga siya ng tao na yun, na nakasama ni Joseph. Sabi niya, ay, meron na kung nakasama sa bilangguan na-interpret niya yung aking dream at totoong nangyari. So yung nga, pinatawag ito si Joseph, tapos kinwento ng hari yung kanyang dream, and that na-interpret, mayroong interpretation si Joseph dun sa dream ng Pharaoh, at na-sense ng Pharaoh, kakaiba itong tao na to. No, kakaiba itong tao na to. So dito na-discover ni Joseph yung purpose ng Lord. And simply because he was a spiritually minded person. He was attuned to God. He was connected to God. Many times we could not hear, many times we could not really know ano ba yung gusto ng Panginoon sa atin. Kasi ang layo natin sa Diyos eh. Para bang wala tayong pakialam sa Diyos sa mga pang-araw-araw na buhay natin, pero pagka may biglang mabigat na sitwasyon sa ating buhay, saka lang tayo lalapit sa Kanya, which is hindi naman masama na lumapit sa Kanya sa bigat ng sitwasyon ng ating buhay. Kaya lang kung nagiging habit natin ang patuloy na kumukonekta tayo sa Diyos, na makikita natin na nagagabayan tayo at natututo tayo sa mga malalaking sitwasyon sa ating buhay, nagkakaroon tayo ng wisdom, malalaman natin kung paano tayo mag-a-act, doon sa ating situation, In verse 36, ang advice na, ito yung advice ni Joseph sa hari. That food should be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine. Kasi ang interpretation niya, merong 7 years na sagana. Kaya mag-ipon, kasi after ng 7 years ng kasaganahan, magkakaroon ng 7 years of famine. Kaya nagbigay ng advice itong si Joseph sa Pharaoh kung ano ang gagawin. And that's why you will notice, ang isang taong konektado sa Diyos, hindi lang yung sarili niya ang ililigtas. Ang concern din niya, kung naiintindihan natin ang purpose ng Lord, it will not only involve us. It will involve rescuing humanity, involve rescuing other people. Now, God's purpose is always the best for our life and the best for other people's lives. Look at this statement. God's purpose is not always easy, of course, to understand. Minsan hindi mo intindihan eh. But there is a purpose in all that God is doing in our lives. Mayroong kadahilanan. Hindi lahat maintindihan. Hindi lahat kumbaga matanggap yung kung ano man yung nangyayari sa ating buhay. Pero merong ginagawa ang Diyos sa ating buhay. At merong gustong gawin ng Diyos, hindi lang sa ating buhay, kundi makasangkapan tayo para sa buhay ng ibang tao. That's why I don't believe a person can survive without a purpose in life. A reason to get out of bed every morning. Kaya ito, nakaganda ito sa ating itong coronavirus na to. Kasi bigla tayong napag-isip-isip Maraming mga bagay sa ating buhay na biglang kumbaga nakakapagbigay ng turo sa atin na yung mga bagay na nakakalimutan natin sa buhay in the past, biglang nagiging realidad sa atin, biglang nagiging totoo. Biglang ating naaasikaso, biglang nating nare-realize na itong mga bagay na itong mga mahalaga. Na mga dati mga bagay na dati hindi natin pinapansin, biglang nagiging, kumbaga, importante sa ating buhay. Merong nag-post na sa kanilang pagpo-post ay more or less ang parang lessons na natutukan nila sa COVID-19 na to, that jobs are temporary, that life is short, that we need never to depend upon simply government support lang, that we are challenged, that we realize that we are part of humanity, that people need God, to survive in life, some people learn that losing freedom, but they gain discipline. Seemingly yung freedom na wala dahil na-lockdown ka But they lose the routine, but they gain creativity. Di ba? Dahil dito sa yung na-lockdown ka, bigla naging creative yung mga dating simpleng ibang klaseng pagluluto na nai-improve mo, napaganda mo, mas marami kang time. Yung losing physical certainty, but you gain spiritual faith. No, you may lose somehow social meetings, but you gain an encounter, a self-encounter. Biglang nagkaroon ka ng ugnay din, of course, sa Diyos. No, you have you probably lost the pleasure of impulsive buying, but you gain self sufficiency. Yung bang yung nga parang last week nga sabi natin na marami pala akong bagay sa aking buhay na hindi naman pala kailangan. Yung mga impulsive buying na pagka nagkapera, pagka mayroong mga, 'di ba, on sale, mura lang, 'di ba, na tendency ma-tempt kang bumili lalo kung may credit card ka eh. Biglang ngayon pag isip-isip ka, hindi ko pala kailangan lahat 'yun. No, yung mga bagay na iyon. No, kaya maraming natutuhan tayo dito sa sitwasyon na 'to. No, at nakita natin yung purpose din ng bakit nangyayari mga bagay na ito. No, this sense of purpose seems to be missing in the lives of some people today because they don't know who they are, why they're here, and where they're going, and many people wander aimlessly with no real purpose in life. Nakakalungkot na day in and day out, bubuhay ka lang, gigising ka lang, tapos walang kadahilanan ng buhay. Salamat sa panahon na ito, biglang marami kang realization. I hope na ang bawat isa sa atin, dumaming mga realization sa buhay. Ating relasyon sa Diyos, siyempre una-una, relasyon natin sa pamilya natin, relasyon natin sa ating trabaho, sa mga co-workers natin, sa ibang pamilya, di ba? I hope we come to a greater realization of the beauty of life as somehow we missed, dahil naabala tayo o naging abala tayo sa ibang mga bagay. No, that's why itong yung purpose, yung magkaroon ng goal sa buhay, na makita natin na life is meaningless without a connection with the giver of life. Leo Tolstoy, the great Russian author, wrote, there is something in the human spirit that will survive and prevail. There is a tiny and brilliant light burning in the heart of man that will not go out no matter how dark the world becomes. That's why there is a sense inside of us. God had given us that capability to survive. Merong light in the midst of the darkness na ating nararanasan o maaring naranasan sa ating buhay. Kaya maganda po talaga na maitama tayo yung ating perspective. Kaya makita natin si Joseph not simply survive, hindi lang siya nanatiling buhay, kundi grabe nag-try, but grabe, nakapaangat siya. Naging second in command. At hindi nga siya, dating alipin, dating bilanggo. Imagine yung inangat niya. Naunahan niya lahat. Naunahan niya yung umaalipin sa kanya. Naunahan niya yung marami mga tao sa buhay. Tanya Fisher Mayers posted this. Actually, I think this lady just got this from somebody else. And I'd like to show you ito. Let me just read as I show this parang perspective to life. For a small amount of perspective at this moment, of the coronavirus, of course, imagine you were born in 1900s. Isipin nyo kunwari lang. When you are 14, bali 1914, nag-start ang World War I. And ended in on your 18th birthday. 4 na taon yun. And with 22 million people killed in that 4 years of World War I. Later in the year, in your 18th birthday, a Spanish flu epidemic hits the planet and runs until you are 20. Kumbaga, 2 taon. At this, yung Spanish flu na yon, 50 million people die from it in those 2 years. No, 50 million. No? Then, when you're 29, again, remember, you were born in 1900. So, bali, 1929, the Great Depression begins. Unemployment hits 25%, global GDP drops 27%. That runs until you are 33, another 4 years. The country, ang context po niya, America, no, nearly collapses along with the world economy. When you turn 39, another 10 years, World War II starts. You aren't even over the hill yet. No, kapakakahinga mo lang. Biglang ito na naman, may bago na naman dumating. World War II naman. Then, when you're 41, the United States, kunwari, Amerikano ka, no? Is pulled into World War II. Between your 39th and 49th birthday, 75 million people perished in the war. And then, the Holocaust, kills 6 million. Yung part ng World War II yun. At 52 years old, 1952, Korean War starts and 5 million people perish. Approaching your 62nd birthday, you have the Cuban Missile Crisis, a tipping point in the Cold War. Life on our planet, as we know it, could well have ended. Great leaders prevented that from happening. Yun yung panahon ni John F. Kennedy. Very grabe yung crisis yung situation. They made a movie out of that. Anyway, at 64, the Vietnam War begins, and it doesn't end for many years. 4 million people die in that conflict. As you turn 75, the Vietnam War finally ends. Think of everyone on the planet born in 1900s. Kung nabuhay sila, nung panahon na yun, imagine, parang 75 years. Okay, ang question, how do you survive all of that? A kid in 1985 didn't think their 85-year-old grandparent understood how hard school was. Yet, those grandparents and now great-grandparents survived through everything listed above, yung mga dinaanan. Grabe, yung mga 85 years old during that time, the last century, grabe yung dinaanan nila. At sinasabi nga nila, yung mga dumaan dun sa World War I, World War II, they were the greatest generation. Well, some people are saying that. Yung mga years na yun, na dun ka nabuhay, dumaan ka dun, you are part of the greatest generation. Grabe, even the midst of those difficulties and trials and grabe, World War, epidemic, grabe, crisis and crisis, again and again. Grabe, ang daming na-invento, ang daming, hindi lang naka-survive, naka-thrive. Kaya, yung sulat ng writer dito, perspective is an amazing art. Let's try and keep things in perspective. Let's be smart, help each other out, and we will get through all of this. In the history of the world, there has never been a storm that lasted. This too shall pass. Yes, there are times, ang tagal, years, bago lumampas yung mga storms. Pero, lumampas din sila. Dumaan din po sila. Mary the Mute, an American author, book mentor and speaker, wrote, God's heart is not that we escape our lot, but that we learn to thrive in the midst of it. Hindi mo lang takasan, hindi mo iwasan yung kung ano man yung dumaan sa iyong buhay, kung hindi mag-thrive ka. Kaya yung po, yung mga dumaan sa gera, dumaan sa daming the last century, so many things happened, so many inventions, so many things have, came up in spite of all those tragedies and epidemics, or even na situations na dinaanan po ng mga tao during the time. I was born in 1959. So wala na ako inabot doon sa, yung mga World War, So, pero, alam ko yung Vietnam War, Korean War, nabasa ko yun. So, but somehow, grabe yung mga taong dumaan sa ganun. They survive and they thrive. The second call to action, in the midst of a crisis na ginawa, kumbaga, na sagawa ni Joseph is devise a survival plan. In the midst of the crisis, base your survival plan, of course, in the revealed will of God. Dahil nga, konektado si Joseph sa Diyos, kaya ito yung kanyang instruction. Verses 33 to 35. So now, let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this. Let him appoint overseers over the land and take a fifth of the harvest of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. Let them gather all the excess food during these good years that are coming. Under Pharaoh's authority, store the grain in the cities so they may preserve it as food. Grabe, no? Yung wisdom na nakita ni Joseph yung purpose ng Lord sa lahat ng yun, dapat yung plano, nakapagbigay siya. Nakapag-isip siya. Mabilis siya nakapagbigay ng suggestion dun sa Pharaoh. No? Kumbaga, hindi yung sinabi doon sa verse 33 na mag-appoint si Pharaoh ng wise man, hindi niya pinipresenta actually naman yung sarili niya. Nagsasuggest lang siya. Kaya lang siya ang pinili. Joseph tapped into the wisdom that God had given him and devised a survival plan, na para daanan nila do sa crisis. Kaya, 'di ba? Kaya ang ating gobyerno, mga tao, 'di ba? Paano ba natin ma-survive? Paano ba natin malampasan ito? Kaya nga, 'di ba, yung mga na infect, 'di ba? Pagkatapos nila, ang tawag sa kanila, 'di ba? COVID survivor. Nag-survive sila, naka-survive sila. So, the government, the health people, lahat naman tayo, sama-sama tayo, nag-iisip tayo ng device, ng plano, paano ba tayo magtatagumpay dito? Kaya nga patuloy ang research, patuloy ang ginagawa ng mga scientists, makakuha ng vaccine against dito sa virus na ito. So kumbaga, makita natin kay Joseph, he was being connected with God. He was able to devise a plan. God expects us to do all we can do. And then He will do all that He can do. I think it was Martin Luther who somehow said or wrote, wala lang ho sa slide, di ko lang mapakita, naalala ko lang po. Sabi niya, pray as if everything depends upon God. But at the same time, act or do something as if everything depends upon you. Minsan po, ang tao, puro pray. Walang aksyon. Ibang tao, puro aksyon, wala namang prayer. Kailangan, nakakombine po yun. Gagawin ho natin yung kaparaanan na binigyan tayo ng karunungan ng Lord na pwede ho natin magawa. At the same time, praying to God and seeking the wisdom of God. That's why to move from surviving to thriving, we must learn to capitalize on the opportunities God provides for us. Alexander Tabarrok, a Canadian-American economist and author, wrote, "The only way to thrive is to innovate." It's that simple. To thrive in life, to innovate. Lahat naman po, yung mga naging successful sa buhay, naggawa sila ng mga innovations. Hindi sila nanatili dun sa, okay, maganda na yung nagawa nila. Innovate nila, improve. Kaya nga, mga Japanese, they called it kaizen, improving the improve. In-improve na nila, improving na naman nila. Kaya sila nagtatribe. Kaya sila nakakapagpatuloy, nakakaangat. Many years ago, you're familiar with this brand. Pag sinabi ko itong brand na to, sigurado, familiar po kayo pagdating sa jeans. Levi's Strauss, or Levi's, di ba? Kilala natin. Levi's Strauss really has become a household name today. However, his name is not known the way Mr. Strauss wanted it to be known. Hindi naman kung ngayon ang kilalang pangalan niya, yun ang gusto niya. Like many other men in the 1840s and 1850s, Levi Strauss went to California in hopes of making his fortune, para kumita. He went to California to look for gold. Now he did make a fortune, but not the way he planned. Hindi ginto, kaya siya yumaman. Strauss left his home with a load of heavy canvas fabric. Strauss planned to sell his fabric for tents and wagon covers. Yun, gamit sana ng fabric na yon. When Strauss set up his place of business, the first miner who came in said, "You should have brought pants. Dapat nagdala ka ng mga pantalon. Ang dali masira ng mga pantalon namin dahil nagbimina kami, dahil sa bigat ng trabaho na ginagawa namin, madali masira yung aming mga pantalon, kaya bibili kami. Sana yun ang dinala mo." And Strauss, who had been in California only a few days, had no idea what the miner meant. So the miner explained to Strauss that there weren't any pants strong enough to survive or endure the arduous conditions of mining. So anong ginawa ni Levi's? Ni Levi Strauss? Umuwi na lang siya? Hindi, wala akong ma-provide na pantalon sa inyo. No! Nag-innovate. He immediately took the heavy canvas fabric na dala niya, and he made the miner a pair of work pants. And within days, Levi Strauss struck gold. Hindi yung mineral na gold, kundi yung pantalon. Not only the bright, shiny gold found in the ground or rivers, but the gold of opportunity. That's why nakilala ang Levi's. A very strong, talagang heavy-duty na pantalon po ito. Doon siya yumaman. Yun yung ginto niya. Opportunity. Why? He innovated. Nag-innovate siya. Hindi lang siya nag-survive, nag-thrive siya. Somebody said, every day we encounter countless golden, magnificent opportunities brilliantly disguised as insurmountable problems. Yung opportunities natin, nakadisguise lang. Disguised as problems, insurmountable. Yung parang hindi mo akalain. Kaya we need to understand that concept. Opportunities only become opportunities when we embrace them as opportunities. You don't wait for opportunities. Andiyan na actually. Andiyan yung mga opportunities. Hindi yung, nag-aantay lang ako opportunity. Sige, hintayin ko lang, istrack ako ng gulatin. Hindi. Andiyan yan. Kung nakatingin tayo, aware tayo, conscious tayo, marirealize natin, makikita natin, magiging aware tayo. And God may offer something to us. Kaya lang, if we refuse to accept it, we refuse to grab really the opportunity that God has placed before us, mamiso natin. Sayang. Kaya, hindi mo lang hintayin ng opportunity dumating. Isis mo, i-grab mo na. Andiyan, tanggapin mo. Ryan Holiday shared an article regarding this crisis. Title ng article niya, "A crisis can make you better, but only if you have this mindset." Kinuwento niya po si John D. Rockefeller. Before he was an oil man, John D. Rockefeller was a bookkeeper and aspiring investor, a small-time financier in Cleveland, Ohio. The son of a criminal who abandoned his family. The young Rockefeller took his first job in 1855 at the age of 16. Ang tawag niya, a day he celebrated it as job day for the rest of his life. All was well enough at 50 cents a day. Yun ang kinikita niya, pero okay na sa kanya during that time. Then, the panic struck. Specifically, the panic of 1857, a massive financial crisis that originated in Ohio and hit Cleveland particularly hard. As businesses failed and the price of grain plummeted across the country, westward expansion quickly came to a halt. The result was a crippling national depression that lasted for several years. Ang haba nung inabot na yon. Pero yung situation na yon, ang sulat nga ni Ryan Holiday, ito sa situation similar to what we're in today, COVID-19. Business closed, the stock market plummeted, and bankruptcies skyrocketed. Daming nahirapan sa buhay. Rockefeller could have gotten scared. Here was the greatest market depression in history, and it hit him just as he was finally getting the hang of things. Medyo nakakaangat na sana siya. ano na niya ang business. He could have pulled out and run like his father. He could have quit finance altogether for a different career with less risk. But even as a young man, Rockefeller had a self-assurance or sang-froid ang tawag, unflappable coolness under pressure. He could keep his head while he was losing his shirt. Better yet, he kept his head while everyone else lost theirs. No? He kept his head. Sabi nga ng kanyang biographer, si Ron Chernow, the more agitated others became, the calmer he grew. Kalmado lang itong si John D. Rockefeller sa gitna ng yon. So instead of bemoaning or grumbling or mourning yung economic upheaval, Rockefeller observed the momentous events. Almost perversely, he chose to look at it all as an opportunity. Ang tingin niya sa lahat ay opportunity to learn a baptism in the market. He quietly saved his money and watched what others did wrong. He saw the weaknesses in the economy that many took for granted and how this left them all unprepared for change or shocks. The same choice we have in front of us today. Ganun din tayo kagaya ni Rockefeller. No? Yung sitwasyon natin. Sa iba, nagpapanik. Anong magiging reaction natin? From the first crisis he experienced, Rockefeller internalized an important lesson that would stay with him forever. The market was inherently unpredictable and often vicious. Only the rational and the disciplined mind could hope to profit from it. No? Ang concept niya, there is always a counter move, always a way through. A path is always there for those willing to look for it, then take it. No? Laging may path after the storm. Hindi ka hinakad lang ako, hindi nagki-create ng path yung storm. It was this intense self-discipline and objectivity that allowed Rockefeller to seize advantage from obstacle after obstacle in his life during the Civil War, the panics of 1873, 1907, and 1929. Ang sabi nga niya, he was inclined to see the opportunity in every disaster. Sa kanya, sa bawat disaster, meron niyang opportunity. Oh, lagi siyang may nakikita na opportunity sa gitna ng lahat ng yun, sa gitna ng lahat ng nangyayari na yun. Let me just jump sa article ni Ryan Holiday. Was he born this way? No. No, this was learned behavior. And Rockefeller got this lesson in discipline somewhere. It began in that crisis of 1857 in what he called the school of adversity and stress. School. No, ang adversity, eskwelahan. Something to learn. No, something in the midst of the stress we can learn. Etong sabi nga how blessed young men are who have to struggle for a foundation and beginning in life. I shall never cease to be grateful for the 3.5 years of apprenticeship and the difficulties to be overcome all along the way. Pinasasalamatan niya yun. Again, another Stoic writer, Epictetus, said, "The true man is revealed in difficult times. So when trouble comes, think of yourself as a wrestler whom God, like a trainer, has paired with a tough young buck. For what purpose? To turn you into Olympic class material." No? Yun ang pananaw ni Epictetus. Kinikreate, kumbaga sa atin, inuhubog ka ng Diyos para maging Olympic class material ka. No? Kaya, the true man is revealed in difficult times. Crisis reveals character. The way you respond to our situation today is a way for people to know who you are, what you are made of. Oh, paano ka nag-react sa sitwasyon ngayon? Paano ka nag-react sa mga nangyari sa iyo? No? Doon malalaman, ano bang, wala pala itong tao na to. Panlabas lang pala siya. Wala pala siyang tibay sa loob. No? The way you speak out, In the midst of the crisis, anong mga pinagsasabi natin, lumalabas kung ano yung laman ng puso na loob natin, di ba? Even Jesus would say that, out of the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. Anong lumalabas sa mga bibig natin sa gitna ng crisis na to? Nare-reveal tayo, anong ang kalalagayan ng tao. Epictetus said that long time ago. The true man is revealed in difficult times. Anong totoo sa iyo? Anong totoo sa akin? Anong totoo sa tao? Lagyan mo ng crisis, malalaman mo kung anong totoo. Of course, many people experience the same perilous times as Rockefeller. Look at this, as Ryan Holiday wrote this, they all attended the same school of bad times, but few reacted as he did. Without the pestilence of panic or fear, few had the discipline in perception to see clearly that there is a proper course of action in every situation. Not many had trained themselves to see opportunity inside this obstacle, that what befell them was not unsalvageable misfortune, but the gift of education, a chance to learn from a rare moment in economic history. Grabe, no? The gift of education. Ang kaloob ng edukasyon. Ano ba ang edukasyon? Ano ba? Saan ba tayo natututo? Many people will face real crisis. Many will not emerge from the other side stronger. We can see disaster rationally, or rather, like Rockefeller, we can see opportunity in every disaster and can transform this crisis into an education, a skill set, or a fortune. Look at this. Again, Ryan Holiday wrote, as many have said, we are living through history. It is up to you if you will see this just as just a crisis or as an opportunity. Will you lose your emotions or remain calm? Will you focus on playing the blame game, feeling sorry for yourself or your response? What will you do next? That's the question. What will you do next? That's why this is your opportunity to develop your confidence, my opportunity to develop mine. Kaya dito tayo lumalabas ang totoo sa atin. Sa ating reaksyon, sa ating mga sinasabi, lumalabas ang pagkatao natin kung sino tayo. Sarah Lewis, an American assistant professor of history and architecture at Harvard University, said, we thrive not when we have done it all, but when we still have more to do. Hindi yung, I have made it. Na-accomplish ko na. Hindi yung marami pa akong pwede magawa. Marami pa akong pwede ma-accomplish sa buhay. I'd like to show you a picture of a guy named Sofana. This guy, you'll notice, yung nagigitara sa picture, may kapansanan yan. Let me read. This was posted a few years ago. When Sofana performs his music on stage, people naturally gather around. Perched on a customized wheel cart that serves as an extension of his body, he sings only from his heart. Through his music, we see a young man with wisdom well beyond his years and a tenderness that comes from the courage that share one's vulnerabilities. Tragedy happened at an early age for Sofana. His parents were killed when he was 6, and just 4 years after, he lost the ability to use his legs through a rare spinal disease. Yung kanyang spinal cord. Despite these multiple adversities, he chose to rise above them, to push forward in what he now describes as this crazy but beautiful life. Ang tawag niya, crazy pero magandang buhay. Drawing strength from the love and memory of his father, who was a well-respected farmer in his home community. Sofana's childhood ambition has always been that of becoming a singer and composer. When he received his first guitar in 2011, he taught himself music through YouTube videos and has since written over 30 original songs, some of which have been aired on television sa kanilang bansa. Ito nga sinabi niya, hardship is just a lesson. You must strengthen your soul. For someone with whom much has been taken away from, Savannah is anything but guarded and selfish. Hindi siya makasarili. Instead, he gives freely from his heart with a smile through and thoroughly infectious, nakakahawa yung kanyang ngiti. It's no wonder that Savannah is the life of the community kung saan siya nakatira. At ito, in his words, we live from the heart and I want to show the world how to make a beautiful life. Gusto ko ipakita. Kaya, two other pictures makikita nyo, no, na meron siyang isang community na tinutulungan, saka isang grupo ng mga kabataan, no, minomotivate niya, tumutulong siya. Hindi siya yung ako, kawawa ako, bikapansanan ako, wala na akong magulang, maawa kay sa akin. No, he chose to live his life with love. As he feels it, he brings joy to those people around him. Grabe. Kakaiba ito, no? Nagturo siya mga music, guitar, English classes, singing lessons for free, no? At finally, ang words niya ganito, when I share what I have with others, I feel love and warmth in my heart. Grabe. Grabe yung ganda ng buhay na na-experience ni Savannah. Lastly, the call to action in the midst of crisis, anong ginawa ni Joseph? He was determined to complete God's program. Tinapos ni Joseph, no, yung inisinimulan ng Lord sa kanya. In Genesis 47:13-16, it reads, there was no food, however, in the whole region because the famine was severe. Ito, nagkatotoo na nga. Both Egypt and Canaan wasted away because of the famine. Grabe, halos maubos sila. Joseph collected all the money that was to be found in Egypt and Canaan in payment for the grain they were buying, and he brought it to Pharaoh's house. When the money of the people of Egypt and Canaan was gone, all Egypt came to Joseph and said, give us food. Why should we die before your eyes? Our money is all gone. Then bring your livestock, said Joseph. I will sell you food in exchange for your livestock since your money is gone. Once you know the will of God for your life, don't backtrack. Stay on it. Di ba? In the wisdom that God had given him, hindi naman na-predict niya, kumbaga na-interpret niya yung dream ng Pharaoh na magkaroon 7 years ang kasaganahan at 7 taon na famine, nagkatotoo na. Dahil nagkatotoo na, huwag ka na mag-backtrack. Ito na, totoo na nga yung nangyari. Think about what Joseph probably went through to do the right thing and save the land from destruction. Imagine, and remember, he was a foreigner. He was a Hebrew. He was an ex-convict. He was a former slave. He was probably attacked constantly because he was different. And people probably thought he was crazy. Yung panahon ng kasaganahan, bakit ka nag-iipon? Sagana naman although sinabi na niya sa Pharaoh magkakaroon ng 7 years ng famine, probably some people did not believe. I don't know, wala naman talaga nakalagay exactly gano'n. Pero baka ibang leaders hindi naniwala sa kanya. But so, want to complete God's program for your life, expect things to get worse sometimes before they get better. Makita natin sa Genesis 47:20-21. So talagang nagka-problema pa rin naman. But anyway, itong tandaan lang ho natin. Maganda yung sabi ni Charles Swindoll. Many times naku-quote ko po isang portion dito. Sabi niya, words can never adequately convey the incredible impact of our attitude toward life. The longer I live, the more convinced I become that life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we respond to it. 10% lang nangyari? Again, response. Again, attitude nakikita. Anong klaseng attitude meron tayo sa response natin sa mga trials, sa difficulties ng buhay. Robert Fulton invented the steamboat. When he first presented this invention, he had plenty of critics crowded on the riverbank. The critics yelled, "It will never start! It will never start! Hindi start yan! Hindi aandar yan!" And so Fulton rather proved them wrong. So umandar. After a lot of clunking and groaning, of course, the steamboat started up and moved down the river. So maandar na. Again, the critics were quiet for a while, pero they still rallied together dahil napahiya sila, na hindi andar. So, ang pangalawang sinigaw naman nila, hindi hinto. No? You will always have critics in life. Gawin mo isang bagay, pag na-accomplish, tatahimik sila, pero meron na naman silang mapupuna. Meron na naman silang criticism, meron na naman silang hindi mangyari yan. Yung una kay Fulton, hindi aandar. Nung umandar, hindi hinto. No? You will always have critics in your life. There will be people who will not believe in your dream. There will be people who will not agree with you in the opportunities you're taking in life. Dito sa pandemic na to, di ba? May isip ka, may masisense ka na gagawin. Kaya nga, grabe, marami nag-thrive dahil dito sa pandemic. Yes, of course, makakalungkot, maraming nahirapan, marami baka magsara yung iba, grabe, napektuhan yung iba. Parang, yun yung anti-fragility. Yung anti-fragility, isang concept ng anti-fragility, yung minsang kahirapan ng isa, magiging tagumpay ng iba eh. Hindi naman natin inaano na sana mahirapan sila para magtagumpay ako. Kaya lang, yun ang buhay eh. Yun ang prinsipyo ng buhay eh. Na minsan, dahil sa trahedya nangyari sa kanya, ikaw ang nakaangat. Maaring yung trahedya nangyari sa iyo, makaangat yung iba. So, the point is, attitude. To move from striving to thriving, we must learn to minimize the negative voices that clatter around us. We must never try, of course, to please those who would criticize us. Why? Simply, we will never be able to do so. Huwag mo i-try, i-please yun. Kasi magiging critical sila sa buhay mo. Ayaw nila, inggit sila sa buhay mo. Ayaw nila umasenso ka. Kasi pag umasenso ka, nagmumukha silang sira. No? That's why, it is so difficult not to listen to that criticism eh. Kaya, maging careful ka. As you are criticized, as you face the negative crowd, follow the example of Robert Fulton. Use it to grow. Pagpatuloy ka lang. Move forward despite the criticism. Don't let it hold you back. Seize the opportunity placed by God before you. Don't be limited by the negative criticism of others. James Hudson Taylor, great man of God na naging missionary to China, wrote, "All God's giants have been weak men who reckon that God was with them." Ito lahat, ito yung ugat lahat eh. Ito yung pinakaugat, hindi yung sariling kakayanan, kapangyarihan, self-will. Hindi dahil willpower lang lahat ito matagumpayanan na. Hindi nire-recognize, hindi, mahina ako eh. May kahinaan ako, may kakulangan ako. Kaya lang ako umangat. Dahil ang Diyos kasama ko along the way. Ang Diyos kaagapay ko sa aking buhay. Pero kung isa pang video na akin po ipapalabas sa inyo, ang tao na to ay pangalan si Brad Cohen. Meron po siyang isang sickness na yung hindi niya maano yung facial expression, nag-iingay po siya. May dalawang movies actually na pinortray ang kanyang buhay. Isang movie actually nung bata siya, o meron akong video nakita na nasa eskwelahan, lagi siyang pinapagalitan ng teacher, nung bata pa siya dahil naiingay siya, yung hindi niya makontrol. So, dahil hindi niya makontrol yun, ayaw ng teacher, so nire-report siya sa principal. Puti yung principal has enough sense na naipagtanggol siya. Maganda yung isang video. But I'd like to show you another video nung binata siya. Nung binata siya, nakagraduate siya, was wanting to find a job, kaya lang halos walang tumatanggap sa kanya. Again, let's look at the attitude. Let's look at the attitude of this guy named Brad Cohen. Out of a disability, he became successful. Let's watch the video.
Son, you been drinking?
No. No, sir. I have Tourette syndrome.
I'm gonna teach that. Okay? I can't let anything get in the way of that.
I make these noises because I have Tourette syndrome. I'd like to tell you about it. It's a neurological disorder where my brain sends mixed signals to my body. It's like sneeze. It's irrepressible. All I want is a chance. Just get me the interviews and let me prove to them that I can do the job. Drop.
Want to take the test? You need to go in there
Look
now.
at me. How could anybody possibly concentrate if I'm in that room?
Listen, I have to start the exam.
But if you're serious, very serious. I want to make teaching my life.
You're gonna have to leave the course. I gotta think of the other members. You want to teach here. You're gonna have to refrain from making these noises in class. Thank you very much for the interview.
But don't you want the job? Yes, actually. I want it really bad. But I would never, ever work for a man that doesn't care about his students. So I'll take my portfolio and take no more of your time. I had no choice but to prove Tourette's would never get the best of me. If I quit, I'd be agreeing with everyone.
Hillary said if we're gonna talk the talk, we need to walk. She's waiting to show you your classroom.
Welcome to Mountain View.
Never gonna make you well, Mr. Cohen?
Well, right now there is no medicine that can cure Tourette's. But it's okay, because I've learned to accept it and I don't let it run my life.
You know. I wanna be in your class, Mr. Cohen.
Heather just loves your class. She can't wait to get to school every day. And I'm here to announce that our very own Brad Cohen has been chosen from amongst all the new educators in the state of Georgia to be Sally Mae's first year Teacher of the Year.
Coping with my Tourette's has taught me the most valuable lesson that anyone could ever learn. And that is to never let anything stop you from chasing your dream. From working or playing, falling in love.
Grabe, no? Grabe yung the way he reacted do sa situation. Yung, siyempre, there was a time probably gusto na mag-give up. Asama hindi, nagpatuloy. Inisipan niya until may tumanggap sa kanya. Teacher, imagine. Teacher na parang umuutal-utal. Teacher na hindi mo makontrol ang ano, but love siya na estudyante. Gusto-gusto ng bata sa kanya na excited na pumasok yung bata dahil dun sa teacher na may kapansanan. And he became the Teacher of the Year. Grabe, no? Hindi yung kapansanan ng problema eh. Ang problema, ang kapansanan ng utak, kapansanan ng attitude sa buhay. Kaya tayo po nade-devastate. Kaya hindi tayo makaangat. But Joseph, thrived in life. Sa dami ng dinaanan niya sa kanyang buhay, mga trahedya ng kanyang buhay, he survived, but he also thrived. At sabi nga niya, kasi mga kapatid niya na nag-argabyado sa kanya, natakot yung mga kapatid niya. Genesis 50 verse 20, let me just quote that sa kanya, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. God meant it for good. Isinagawa ng Lord para sa kabutihan. Now, we all face all types of events that have shook us and caused us to wonder, bakit ako, di ba? Laging ganun pagka nagkakaproblema tayo diyan, bakit ako, bakit sa amin nangyari, bakit ako na naman, kumbaga. If we're honest, we probably had the same or similar feelings. Sometimes life just happens and things surprise us. No? There will be times in each of our lives when we will face challenges that will shake our foundation. But I have a good news for you. You can survive. And not only survive, you can actually thrive when you depend upon the Lord, when you seek God to guide you, when you seek God for wisdom in your situation. God, no, will allow you to walk through it and gain wisdom along the way and be able to make wise decisions in life. No, no, ma-experience mo ba ito? Parang kang tinutulak at the edge ng iyong buhay. No, listen to God. Expect God to help you. Lahat tayo may krisis sa buhay. Lahat tayo may trahedya sa buhay. I just like to share partly again our personal testimony. Last Friday, my mother-in-law passed away. She went home to be with the Lord. I've shared with you in a couple of our streaming na yung aking brother-in-law na the husband of my youngest sister passed away, went home to be with God a month ago. No, isang buwan pa lang yun. Ito naman yung aking biyanan. No, my mother-in-law is 94 years old. Up to 90 years old, she was strong. Malakas siya. Grabe. Malinaw ang mata, malinaw ang tenga, na-move, ano, until nagkaroon ng aksidente, natalunan siya ng kanilang aso, nadapa siya, and since then, medyo nag-start siya, nag-deteriorate hanggang sa the past 2 or 3 years, medyo nag-decline yung kanyang health, no? Pero, alam niyo, nakita namin mag-asawa, as we were looking, syempre, masakit din sa amin, no? At this point in time na hindi na naman kami makauwi. Nung namatay yung brother-in-law ko, hindi kami nakauwi. At this time, hindi na naman kami makauwi. Pati yung mga sisters-in-law ko, hindi rin makaano dahil yung isa nasa Amerika, dalawa senior citizen din, hindi nga nakita. Hindi nga nakapasyal, na hospital pa, so hindi nga nakapasyal. So para masyado naman tragic. Hindi ka makauwi, ito nga, namatayan kayo. So, but we look at it in a different way, kami mag-asawa. Nakita namin na the hand of God was always been there. Gabi, dinirect ng Lord yung papunta sa isang ospital, nakausap yung aking hipag sa Amerika, na direct dito sa ospital na to, tinanggap siya, and uoperahan sana, kaya lang hindi na kayanan ng kanyang health, ano, and maganda ang istorya, she just passed away peacefully. Sabi lang nung helper, kasi pinabantay nung sa helper, na tinawag yung nurse na hindi na kumikilos, o noon pala, wala na, hindi siya nag-struggle. In spite na hirap na siya, she was supposed to be operated dahil yung kanyang bed sore, na-infect na siya, so may infection na sa blood niya, so on and so forth. Nag-fail na rin ang internal organs. So somehow, ano nakita namin? Kita pa rin namin ang hand of God. Isang nakita namin, yung aking anak, yung dahil hindi nga makapunta yung aking mga hipag, ano, except yung isang anak ng hipag ko, but my son was there to help and serve yung kanyang grandma, no, na although hindi niya makapasok dahil pinagbawal na pumasok dun sa ano, kasi syempre mahigpit ngayon ang mga hospital, but somehow nakapag-serve yung anak ko, siya ang nagdala from the hospital to the funeraria, sa crematorium, no, na tinulungan kami ng aking sister-in-law, yung asawa ng brother ko, no, na ma-cremate siya. So she was cremated yesterday, and so natapos. So parang siyempre may pain, we cried. My wife and I cried. We just embraced, we hugged each other in the midst of the pain ng ganon. But somehow we saw the sovereignty of God, na maaaring hindi kami nakapunta nung panahon na namatay yung biyanan ko. Pero God had given us ilang months ago or the past 2 or 3 years, mas madalas kami nakakapunta sa Manila. And we were able to serve yung aking biyanan, most especially yung aking asawa, yung nanay niya, na natsyempo nga pagka pumupunta kami ng Manila, biglang magkakasakit, nadadali namin sa ospital. So yung wife ko na nagbabantay doon sa ospital, so nagkaroon siya ng chance to serve her mom, no, yung mga ano. So we look at that as an opportunity that God had given us, and we felt at peace. My wife is at peace na somehow. Ilang years ago, time to time, she would share to her mom about Jesus, about the goodness of the Lord. No? And somehow, at rest ang puso na somehow the Lord had taken care of everything. So, kami rin ang daming crisis na itong opening ng taon na to. Ang dami rin namin mga dinaanan. And somehow, we just hold on to God. Somehow, we look up to God, that God will help us along the way. So, our question is, how do you respond when something happens that shakes you to the core that you don't even expect? No? Coronavirus, this pandemic, hindi naman natin expect ito eh. No? Remain engaged in the process and your focus, don't lose your focus on God. Don't get anxious, you will do something and regret later. Now remember to hold on to God. Don't lose your heart. Keep yourself open to God so that God can guide you and somehow direct you in the steps that you need to take. No? Kanya-kanya sa crisis na to, may gustong pagawa ang Diyos sa bawat isa sa atin. Kung paano, hindi lang tayo makasurvive, kundi kung paano, pagkatapos ito, paano tayo makaka-thrive. No? Si Yosegi, no? Kenshin, a Japanese daimyo or powerful feudal lord, he wrote, engage in combat fully determined to die, and you will be alive. Wish to survive in the battle, and you will surely meet death. Kumbaga, siguro yung sa essence ng commitment eh. Labanan mo itong battle na to. Sige, face it. Determine na lalabanan mo itong sitwasyon na to. Hindi lang yung makasurvive ka lang, kundi patay ka talaga. Parang, kasi warrior ito eh. Yung konsepto ng warrior ng mga Hapon, no, marami na mga Japanese na mga concept ng samurai, yung samurai ng concept ng service, ng commitment, ng loyalty, dala-dala na sa buhay nila, kaya they thrived, they succeeded. The only nation na 2 atomic bomb, no, ang bumaksak sa kanila, pero mga tambansa, they thrived. They were able to rise sa gitna ng kalandinaanan kasi there's a certain depth ng spirituality ng mga Japanese na pinangahawakan nila. To end, I'd like to show you a picture. You will see this picture of a young boy. Itong sinulat ng photographer, yung kumuha ng picture niya, si Joe O'Donnell. During World War II yan. Ang explanation ng photo na yan, I saw a boy about 10 years old walking by. He was carrying a baby on his back. In those days in Japan, we often saw children playing with their little brothers or sisters on their backs. But this boy was clearly different. I could see that he had come to this place for a serious reason. Nung na-picture niya, nung pumunta yung bata na yun sa lugar niya, he was wearing no shoes, his face was hard, the little head was tipped back as if the baby were fast asleep. Akala mo, tulog lang yung bata. The boy stood there for 5 or 10 minutes. Then, the men in white, mga mama na nakaputing mask, walk over to him and quietly began to take off the rope that was holding the baby. That is when I saw that the baby was already dead. The men held the body by the hands and feet and placed it on the fire. The boy stood there straight without moving, watching the flames. He was biting his lower lip so hard that it shone with blood. The flame burned low like the sun going down. The boy turned around and walked silently away. That heartbreaking picture was taken after the atomic bombing of Nagasaki, Japan in 1945. It shows a young Japanese boy standing at attention, carrying the body of his baby brother who had been killed in the bombing. Kasi may mga crematoriums, makeshift crematoriums po ang sinet up outside the city. So this young boy had walked a long distance so that mailagay niya yung kanyang kapatid para ma-cremate. Sabi nung writer nung story na, life is a daring adventure or nothing. In life, we have all a reason to surrender in our situation. However, we also have all the reason to step forward facing it with an iron heart. No? Daanan po natin. The call to action like Joseph in the midst of crisis is to discover God's purpose, to devise a survival plan with the wisdom coming from God, and determined to complete God's program in your life. Mahaba pa yung lakbayan natin. Marami pa po tayong dadaanan. No, kami nga, in the midst of a crisis, may crisis din kami. At somehow we can always look up to God. Yes, there will be pain. There will be heartaches. There will be tragedies that will come again. Crisis reveal our character. Our attitude towards the crisis will speak volumes of who we are, what we are made of. No, kagaya kaya tayo ni Joseph na napagtibay ng mga trahedya sa buhay ng kanyang sinabi, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. O sana po na ay patuloy na lumapit sa Diyos, daanan natin po itong sitwasyon na to, hindi lang mo ma-survive, hindi lang mo matapos lang ito, kundi to try to become better people and to help other people as well. Sana yun po ang parang resulta nitong pong krisis na ito na ating pong tinadaanan. Manalangin po tayo. Aming Diyos, sa gitna ng lahat ng trahedya sa aming buhay, nawa na makita lang namin ang iyong kamay sa lahat ng ito. Nawa, Panginoon, Lord God, na makikita namin, Lord God, meron kang palatuntunan sa lahat ng ito. That we are part of the program and purpose, O Lord God. Now, Lord, na itinatama po ang aming mga perspective sa lahat ng sitwasyon na ito. Salamat, O Lord God, that we will not only aspire to survive, na matapos lang ito, at makapanimbalik na lang kami sa kung ano man yung dati, kundi, O Lord God, that we can thrive, that we can really become better people, and that we will be able to help others to become better as well. Salamat po, Lord, sa opportunity na nakalagak sa aming harapan. Lord God, nawa na panghawakan ka lang namin sa lahat ng ito. Patuloy lang kami magpasakop sa iyo. Patuloy kami makinig sa iyo. Dahil, Lord God, meron kang isinasagawa sa aming buhay. Nasishake nga ang aming foundation. Nasishake nga ang aming buhay. Pero dahil kung kami ay naka-angkla sa iyo, Panginoon, Lord God, hindi po kami matitinag. Salamat, Panginoon. In spite of all of this, we are assured, O Lord God, that you will be with us. You will help us. You will guide us. Salamat sa bawat isa na nakapakinig, Panginoon. Pagpalain mo ang bawat pamilya, ang bawat, O Lord God, tahanan. Lord God, kung ano man ang kanilang ginagawa sa buhay at ano man ang hinaharap pa nila, O Lord God, tulungan mo lang po bawat isa makadesisyon ng tama. Lord God, idadirect mo ka lang mga buhay sa something, O Lord God, na hindi nila akalain na pwede nilang magawa, O Lord God. Salamat, Panginoon, Lord God, that we can look back, O Lord God, pagkatapos ng mga sitwasyon na to, and look back and see ito yung mga turning point or another turning point in our life, O Lord God, na Lord God, na aming dinaanan na nagpaiba sa aming buhay. Maraming salamat, O Lord God, na Lord, dahil mabuti kang Diyos, dahil tapat ka, Panginoon, O Lord God, ay Lord God, palagi lang kami makakatawag sa iyo. Muli, O Lord God, pinupuri ka namin sa lahat ng kabutihan mo. Pagpalain mo ang bawat isa sa linggong ito, sa lahat ng mga sitwasyon na aming dadaanan. Lord God, salamat sa iyong pagmamahal. At nawa, Lord God, patuloy ka namin mahalin at sundin. Ito po ang aming panalangin sa ngalan lang ni Jesus. Amen at amen. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pakikiugnay po sa atin sa ating streaming na ito. Muli po, follow and like us in our Facebook page. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Bread of Life GenSan, so that you will be able to see yung ating po in-upload na mga videos po dito. Magandang araw sa inyo lahat at nawa na samahan kayo ng Diyos sa linggong ito.